Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison, and I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising as we complete a 5-day program on the events that are currently taking place in Iran. On the 16th of September, a young Iranian woman from the Kurdish nation was beaten to death by the morality police, Mahsa Amini, for not having her hijab on exactly correctly. And that ignited protests around the world that gave rise to the most ferocious protests since the Ayatollah Khomeini seized power back in 1978, 1979. What has been extraordinary about the events is that it's been catalyzed and in some ways led by young women. This is the first time, I think, in modern history, certainly in my lifetime, where something like this has taken place. So it's really captivated the attention of the world. And we have been highlighting events and convened this 5-day program in the aftermath of Mahsa's 40th death day as a reminder of the importance of not only empowering young women and revolutionary struggle, but the imperative to rid Iran of this repressive and coercive, and I would say blasphemous regime, because any regime that kills its own children, because there have been scores of Mahsas over the last several months, has no longer any right to exist. One of the things that we've been emphasizing, that I've been emphasizing in our introductions every morning, is that this is a unique opportunity for the people of Iran to reconnect in a powerful way with their Persian roots. Persia was, of all the empires, perhaps the most elegant, tolerant, compassionate, and merciful in victory. It turned out the 40th death day of Mahsa Amini coincided with the day each year associated with Cyrus the Great, known in antiquity as the King of Kings, and some historians believe was among the greatest monarchs in all of history because of his strategic genius in war and battle, but also because he embodied a ruler of tolerance and compassion and extraordinary diplomatic skill. Today, we're going to be focusing on the inner and the outer as we conclude our week. And I want to just make the note that Persia was the first imperial system that united India to the east and the Mediterranean to the west. And that allowed a global conversation among spiritual masters and seekers across the ancient world for the first time. And scholars have marveled at the way the Persian Empire brought all these people together for the first time in a single conversation. There's a relief in Persepolis, one of the few that still stands, and it shows the king presiding over a banquet where 23 nations are represented. That gives you some measure of the kinds of interconnectivity that took place at that time. As gurus from India met philosophers from Greece and priests from Egypt and Mesopotamian astrologers. And the extraordinary result of this Persian conversation that was called Pax Persica. You've heard of Pax Romana. Well, there was a Pax Persica. And during this time, it gave rise to a global consensus in the ancient world about the deepest nature of reality. And it was comprised of three fundamental principles that have endured to the present day. The first was that everything is interconnected, that the many and the one, the unity of the cosmos and the diversity of the cosmos are all in a fundamental way, not only interconnected, but interweaving in a great cyclic pattern of life. It was during this period that philosophers and spiritual leaders and astrologers discerned the zodiac cycle of 25,000 years, and that the whole solar system revolves in a great circle. And that's the zodiac. That came out of this period. The second principle, embraced by all, was around the transmigration of the souls, that life emerges from death. Death emerges from life in a recurring cycle of living and dying and incarnation and the transmigration of the souls. And then thirdly, this was the period in human history where the spiritual masters discerned that there was a relationship between human action, the inner disposition of the heart, and some way influencing the cosmic scales of justice, so that human actions actually affect nature, actually affect the historical process. And this consensus held until the emergence of Christianity, which shattered it in a fundamental way, but did not extinguish it. And one of the most exciting events in human spirituality over the last 100 years has been the resurgence of that spiritual consensus that was articulated at the time of Pax Persica. So this is a very exciting moment and an opportune moment for the people of Iran to rid themselves of the mullahs and return to the grandeur of Persia. And that's what's embodied and expressed through the current slogan of women, life, and freedom. So in this spirit, I want to welcome my good friend and colleague, Banafsheh Sayyad, Persian woman, and she's been the convener of this 5-day program and many of the sessions on Humanity Rising as we've been tracking this extraordinary development, not only in human history, but in Iran. Banafsheh, thank you so much for bringing all of this to our attention and convening this 5-day program. I turn the program over to you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you so much for illuminating the roots and the roots of Persia. Welcome to the final day, everyone, of Woman, Life, Freedom, the Summit on Iran, where we've been listening to the voices on the liberation movement in Iran. In yesterday's session, we inspired us with the concept of vigilant solidarity, and how when a woman, a group or nation of women makes the decision to liberate themselves, that liberation becomes the liberation of everyone. Their freedom becomes the freedom of us all. As they shake free the shackles, we learn to do the same. As the women of Iran liberate themselves and step more fully into living their authentic selves, they not only inspire the liberation of women in other parts of the world and even pave the way, the men in Iran and other parts of the world can also step into their authentic selves more readily, more fully. Zan, zindagi, azadi, Mard, Mihan, Abadi. The slogan Woman, Life, Freedom is followed and balanced with man, motherland, prosperity. You can also think of motherland as a sense of belonging, as well as the reclamation of heritage. As Jim has been pointing out, the son of the glorious Persian heritage has once again dawned from the hearts of Iranian people, and especially the younger generations, with the eternal words of our ancestors, Ferdowsi, Hafez, Attar, Sohrawardi, Rumi, Shams, and others, as well as the deeds of Cyrus the Great, animating and guiding them to what they're doing and living through them. The words of Rumi when he says, بسکل ز بی اصولان مشنو فریب غولان که تو از شریف اصلی که تو از بلند جایی. Break away, he says, from the unscrupulous. Don't fall for the deceit of ghouls. You are of noble origin. You are of the highest high. And in the same poem, a few lines down, he says, تو چو باز پای بسته تن تو چو کنده بر پا تو به چنگ خیش باید که گره ز پا گشایی. You are like a hawk whose feet are bound, weighed down by the dramas of the visible world. It's with your own claws that you must untie the knots. In another poem, he says, ز زندان خلق را آزاد کردم روان عاشقان را شاد کردم دهان اژدها را بردریدم طریق عشق را آباد کردم. I freed the people from prison and made the soul of lovers rejoice. I tore asunder the mouth of the dragon and regenerated the way of love. This is exactly what the young people rising up for freedom and justice are doing, not just for themselves, but for the entire nation of Iran, and from there, for the world, guided by our ancestors. Freeing people from the prison of fear, victimhood, and powerlessness in the face of oppression and injustice, to regenerate the way of love. Rumi uses this beautiful verb, abad kardan, abadi, the word that is chanted, the third word that we hear chanted after woman, life, freedom, which I translated as prosperity, which in our times means regeneration. Regeneration is our theme today, the inner and outer regeneration that is needed because of the ravages of this brutal and inhumane regime and the widespread of trauma they have inflicted, not just on the people, but also on animals and on the land. In yesterday's session, Via and I shared the voices of young Iranian women, some of whom spoke about their dedication to rebuild and regenerate our motherland. From the tears of the mothers grieving the slaughter of their heroic daughters and sons, who are denied even a simple burial with honor because the authorities are terrified of funerals and memorials becoming focal points of people gathering to cry out in pain against their atrocities, like we witnessed yesterday, as the regime shut down the memorial of the 23-year-old woman Hadis Najafi and the 17-year-old teenage boy Parsa Rezadoust, and blocked thousands who had come from entering the mortuary. From the tears of the mothers, the tears of a whole nation weeping for their young, whose precious lives are taken, And from the blood of these heroes, a new life will emerge, and the dry, neglected, barren land will once again become fertile and green with love. Before we turn to our speakers today and their vision of regeneration, I invite our group to revisit the intention of holding the light of certainty for the people of Iran, the certainty that they are freeing themselves from this government that does not serve them, and do so as peacefully as possible. And beam the light of love and strength and protection to the brave girls and boys, women and men in Iran who are standing up for freedom, autonomy, and justice, not just for themselves, but for their whole nation and the whole world, without fear for their lives. So please sit comfortably, sense the ground with both feet, lovingly and with reverence to our Mother Earth. Relax and release your weight onto what you're sitting on, and maintain a vertical posture with ease, letting your torso lift and elongate like a glorious tree without much tension. And rest the back of your hands on your lap. We will be doing the coherent breathing practice that has been a ritual on Humanity Rising. If you're joining us for the first time, I'm referring to a slow nasal breathing that devotes 5.5 seconds for the inhalation and 5.5 seconds for the exhalation, coming to about 5.5 breaths per minute. This type of breathing brings a balance between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic aspects of your autonomic nervous system. Can you please share the slide, Raji? So as you see, this image is the 5-petaled flower pattern which the earth dancing with Venus creates as they orbit the sun. Let the bells you hear signal when to inhale and when to exhale. And please close your eyes. Please remain in this inner space and continue taking slow breaths. Within the sensation of your whole body, sitting here, feel your heart. Connect with the space around you through your heart. Feel into the room you're sitting in through your heart. Breathing in and out of your heart. In this moment, what do you feel grateful for? As you breathe, let this sense of gratitude fill your heart like a vibrant golden light or a green light that emanates in and from the heart chakra, letting it expand into your chest, permeate your whole body. As you inhale, come in touch with how you're breathing in the precious life force, sensing the light in your heart expand. And as you exhale, breathe out gratitude, seeing the light of gratitude spread out into the environment around you. Now become aware of our group gathering from different parts of the world on this call. Feel as if you can sense the heart of each of us. Now connect the light in your heart with the hearts of the rest of us. Feel how as you merge the light of your heart with us into one heart, you start to feel more spaciousness in your own heart and body. You're expanding the light that dissolves that which is not love, that which does not honor and affirm life, like the upholders of the Islamic Republic. See their dark, life-negating power dissolve into the light. Now feel with utmost certainty that the people of Iran will free themselves of this government that does not serve its people as peacefully as possible. Keep alive the light of certainty that they will triumph, that we will triumph, that it has already happened. What does this triumph look like? See it. People celebrating in nature, women without hijab, people laughing, showing their care for animals, and you are among them. What does it feel like in your heart to witness this triumph? What is the sensation in your body as you celebrate? This triumph is about freedom, justice, and peace. All body regenerating the way of life, the way of love, spreading into our whole world, starting from the ancient land of Persia. In the name of woman, life, freedom, man, motherland, regeneration. And so it is. Amen. Let's now turn to our speakers today with a focus on the evolutionary demand of our time to rise up for life, to raise our humanity to such a level that we become stewards and protectors of life, all life, aware of our crisis for life or extinction. We will look at the potentials and possibilities that the women-led uprising in Iran is unleashing for protecting all life on our planet. Our first speaker is Pupak Hariri, an Iranian-born world citizen and founder of Trees for Hope, a charity dedicated to rewilding the Fertile Crescent. Pupak is a writer, storyteller, visual artist, and a dreamer, and a pragmatic activist for a beautiful world, helping people reach for their own dreams and contribute their power in an alchemical social process, she says, to psychologically and ecologically heal our wounded world. Welcome, Pupak. Thank you for joining us. Please speak to us about the ecological state of Iran and how you envision regeneration.
Thank you. Thank you, Banafsheh. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, everyone, the Humanity Uprising, for having me here today. Very glad to be speaking and sharing this platform with you. So I have a presentation. I'm going to share my screen here. All right. So I'd just like to start by saying that you see two symbols on my screen. I will be speaking from myself. So my name is Pupak, and it is the hoopoe bird in Farsi. So I just needed to clarify where I'm speaking from, and I realized I need to distinguish. There are slides and things that I will be speaking for myself, and also I will be speaking for Trees for Hope, which is a charity a Scottish charity who is dedicated to rewilding the Fertile Crescent. So that's why I have these two symbols. I wanted to clarify that. And here we are, the Fertile Crescent. So I noticed, so I distinguish between the word Middle East and the Fertile Crescent. And I would like to really ask the audience here today to perhaps, if you can pause and reflect on the choice of these two words. The Middle East is a colonial word and its references to Britannia. So we are the Middle East, we're far away from, from Britannia. And the Fertile Crescent is a different word. It's from the land, and it speaks for the dream of the land. So that's why I'm choosing the word Fertile Crescent instead of the Middle East. I like really the word fertility, and the word crescent, which has for me the crescent shape of the moon and a feminine energy. Now, Fertile Crescent historically refers to a part of the land. There's a geography associated with the word Fertile Crescent, which doesn't cover the areas of interest for Trees for Hope. So we're looking into regenerating a big part of the world, rewilding, we call it. So because it wasn't quite adequate, we came up with a new word. We call it the wider Fertile Crescent for Trees for Hope. Because we needed to make up a word, and I wanted to keep the word Fertile Crescent. So that's sort of my request, if we can reflect on our choice of word, and with these words, we can create a new story for our region, and like to pay attention to how we refer to this beautiful part, this beautiful and wounded part of the world that needs a lot of healing. And hopefully we will do it together. All right, so I want to start with gratitudes. My first gratitude is to the spirit of Masamini and our dear friends, our young people who are really putting their lives down now to uprise. It takes a huge sacrifice on our part, and this uprising is really, the courage of our people, young people who sacrifice, and us, all of us really, are sacrificing something of the old to uprise and to arise together. So I really want to really pay my gratitude and respect to the spirit that's arising from us this moment. I want to spirit our ancestors, the land of Persia, and I'm really grateful to Jim, who went to a great length to describe the spirit, the Persian spirit that we've, that's been assaulted in the last 43 years. So the Persian spirit for me is a spirit of, it belongs to the path of dignity, of honor and truth. And as Banafsheh explained, and this is in our soul, that we have the words of Hafiz and Rumi, and the poets who speak so eloquently from this place, from this path of humanity, the eloquent human being. So I want to thank the spirit of Persia, our ancestors and our future generations at the same time. And also I want to thank the people around the world who are helping, who are connecting with us, like today, like this platform we're speaking from, Humanity Uprising, who are giving our time and attention to this momentous change that we're going through, this evolution, this woman-led movement. It's part of the great turning for us, and it's part of the story of our world right now. So thank you. All right. I want to actually put a poem here. I wanted to sound the words of our language, and I did a rough translation. So I just like to share this with you. That's part of the spirit of the land, and I really love to bring this across to the audience here today. So this is a poem by Hafiz, and he says, Garme furush hajat rendan rawa konad, izad gunah bebakshad و دفع بلا کند. ساقی به جام عدل بده تا گدا غیرت نیاورد که جهان پر بلا کند. جان رفت در سر می و حافظ به عشق بسوخت. عیسی دمی کجاست که احیاء ما کند. I just did a rough translation just before the session, and I translated in these words. If the wine bearer would grant our deepest desires, God would forgive all sins and calamities would deflect. Wine bearer, pour into my chalice with your justice, for the pauper does not plot disasters. Dares not plot disasters in our world. My soul is twinned with your wine as I burn away in your love. O Christ being, where art thou to regenerate us again? So that speaks, from our land, from our soul. Now, I want to turn and talk about the land. Today, my attention is very much about our land and regenerating our land. So my look is outward, and Kambiz Nafisi, who speaks after me, will speak about regenerating the inner self. Now, so water. You know, the pain of our land is really great. Actually, before I go into the slides and talk about how damaged our lands have become in these decades, I want to tell you perhaps why I am speaking these words today. And I want to share my own experience of feeling the pain of land and what that's done to me. So I went back to, I left Iran in 1984. When I was 16, I migrated and I went to Japan. And then I returned to Iran in year 2000. So I was away for 16 years. And when I returned, I was there for 1 month, seeing my grandmother and friends and family. And when I left after that 1 month, I had this experience. I took the airplane from Tehran airport to Istanbul. Is a flight of about 1.5 hours. And I remember I put my scarf down and I just cried the whole time, the whole flight. I really felt the pain of the land so deep. The land, the people, life in Iran, it's really a deep, deep pain. And that was 22 years ago. And I've been going back every time. And every time I go back, the pain, it gets worse and worse, ecologically, and as we know, socially, and so on. But I'm going to talk about the ecological picture today. Now, water. So for us Iranians, seeing these 2 slides I've put of Lake Urumiyeh is in Azerbaijan is a familiar and deep pain for us. We know what's been happening to the waters of our land. We're losing our lakes. And it's not just this lake. All the bodies of water in Iran are suffering. Most ponds, our large bodies of water, you know, the Persian Gulf and the Oman Sea, are being depleted of life. There is fishing, and it's just disastrous approach. So I call it a hostile takeover. It's as if there's a hostile takeover and we're just taking over all life. And of course, water is life. So we are very challenged in terms of water. So I wrote here, like women of Iran, our lakes and rivers and gulfs are controlled and abused. And that's what I see and experience in Iran. Okay, let's look at our forest. I took these photographs myself in the Hirkanian forest. So Hirkanian forest is a treasure site. Is the land just south of Caspian Sea, between Caspian Sea and the Alborz mountain. And in terms of biological diversity, it's a very rare place in the whole planet. We have species there that doesn't exist anywhere else. So we really need to protect it. What I've seen there is this mass deforestation. So the trees are cut down. You can see the tree on the left. And these are big ancient trees. These are trees of 300 years old, 200 years old. And they're just cut down and left to rot. They're not even harvesting it for use. I think it's just due to mismanagement, maybe more. But we've walked this path that I'm showing you. The next slide as well will show for kilometers, and they're just these corpses left on either side of the road. And it's been the most painful sight for me to walk this path in the Hyrcanian forest. So deforestation, yeah, it's a big calamity. Soil. It's difficult to talk of pain, but we have to, I feel we have to look at it. So to help ourselves, we need to really face this pain. Yeah, I mean, our soil is depleted of life. The photo you see I've taken in Fars 3 years ago, Fars province. We have huge dust storms, you know, people are suffering their health, but we only focus on people. I want to expand our view to also look at all living beings. Everyone is suffering because of the depletion and soil erosion and the dust storms and lack of life. The life force really has left our land, and it's really a huge pain. Fire or energy. So we've been relying on oil and the nuclear power infamously recently. And again, for me, this is a kind of a power over and merciless type of power. We're just extracting and burning and regardless. So it's again, you know, our land is suffering, we are suffering. And yeah, I really, in the turnaround, the second part or the other part of my talk, I would like to address the source of energy and the change of energy that we're capable of. Right, air. Okay, I just put this slide and I just put this word because of this polluted air. This is a verse from Shervin Hajipur's song that's gone viral. Is something you can see yourself. I mean, you know, people who live, I've been in Tehran and I breathed this air and it's polluted and it's sickening. So people are suffering from respiratory problems and it's sickening. I can't tell you more than that. It's not a good air to breathe. Wildlife, yes, is another pain for me. Yeah, you see the picture of Piruz is this cheetah, Persian cheetah on the right-hand corner, and that's another line actually of Shervin's song. He said, because for the probability of Piruz's extinction, because not only the cheetah, but in the IUCN's list, there are 74 species on the red list that were threatened with extinction. And for me, the list is actually much larger because I know we don't know who lives in Iran in terms of wildlife. We're just beginning to scratch the surface of what wildlife we have. We need to really build a better relationship, you know, with our wildlife and environment. So I would like to call out the name of these species who are threatened with extinction in Iran. Some of them on this screen, and I'm going to beat my drum, and I'm going to hold the light of certainty that these beings, these friends, will not be extinct. And I would like you to join me in this vision that we will not experience this mass extinction in Iran. So I have my drum. And with me, please join. I hope you will hear it. I'm going to call out these beings, the name of these beings, and join me in seeing that they will thrive, that will come back, and life will come back to our land. So here we have the Baluchistani bear, the Asiatic cheetah, the Caspian seal, the Persian fallow deer. We have the Siberian crane. One came back this year called Omid, so may they return and be many more. The Siberian crane, hawksbill turtle, the green turtle, the ox's cobra lives in the north, the dugong, the Anatolian leopard, also known as Persian leopard, they're the same. Caspian sea wolf is a picture on the right, the dolphin, and the Latifi viper, and so much. May we all return and thrive in our land. Right, and of course, our environmentalist, Dr. Imami as well, murdered, and they're in jail. So we Iranians know these pictures intimately, and we ask for their return and being released, which is very probable now with the change of, with our uprising, with the possible future we're facing. Okay, seeing with new eyes. And my question is, what's your wildest dream? Because each one of us are here, I think, now as a star seed. Each one of us as a human being have this potential to give back so much to life. So we each need to explore that. But here I want to share with you what are some of my wildest dreams. So here it's me and my husband, Alan Watson Featherstone on the right and myself on the left. We're in Golestan forest in northern Iran. And we found this beautiful ancient tree and are hugging. I asked Alan to come to Iran with me in 2005 because he's done an amazing work to rewild the Caledonian forest here in Scotland. I'm based in Scotland, so he's done an amazing work, and he's really a pioneer in this field of reviving, regeneration, bringing life back to land. So he came with me, and this is my dream. I feel we are capable of regenerating, becoming green and wild and crazy and full of life. So this is the lowest plateau in China, and the people who actually created this miracle in the desert, I'm in touch with them, and I asked to join the program today. I hope, and so we are a whole group. And we will grow together. We have the know-how and the knowledge, and we know the ways, and we just have to get there and keep and doing it together. But this is my wildest dream, to regreen our land, and we can do it. Rewilding ourselves. So Kambi's Nafisi will speak more on it, but I just like to refer, I wrote a book called Theater O, and it's about this theme. It's about healing, actually, healing from war, and bringing the wildest possibility that is available to us as human beings. So I'm going to leave Kambis to speak about that. And walking into our life-giving future. The dawn is here, the dawn is near. I'm going to hopefully play a song for you, and the dawn will be breaking into beautiful possibilities. So I want to share a few wild thoughts from me about what possible steps we could take towards this beautiful, regenerated, free, and wild Iran. So yes, I took these photographs on the left. These are not Asiatic lions, but these are lions I saw in the zoo in Iran. And I have to say, the suffering was so huge. I saw the lions, I saw the bears, I saw all sorts of animals, and the wolf. And actually, I couldn't even take photographs because it was just so painful for me to see these friends. And I had tried actually to make a animal sanctuary in outside Ghazvin in Iran. I've worked with some friends. We had a group. We had a wild. So for me, the Persian, the Asiatic lion it symbolized, is on our flag, and I have the Persian lion here very close to my heart. And I wish that we create a safe and animal sanctuary for the people, for the animals who are in the zoo right now. And this can be done straight away, so that they can enjoy life a bit more. We're not ready to release them into the wild. That takes more processes. I would like to see the Asiatic lion return, but I know that takes more work, and we're not ready. But I want to see these sanctuaries, animal sanctuaries, and I think we're ready for it. We have this beautiful tradition on Nowruz of growing wheat and lentil and all sorts of greens. And I know my friends have started to grow tree saplings, seedlings, and we can do that year on year. And we can go out and plant them. And I want to say, we need to have some ecological literacy knowledge about how to plant them, because if we plant the wrong species in the wrong place, it will be a problem. It's a problem here in Scotland with the invasive species of rhododendron is a very big problem. So let's be literate, let's be ecologically literate and regreen our land together with new traditions, with new ways. In Iran, the day of tree planting is 6th of March every year. So let's look out for the date and let's go out and be wild. Okay, communities of earth healing. I feel we have the potential to create small, beautiful communities, to really heal and be sovereign. We can be very sovereign. We need to be small communities, small self-organized and sovereign communities, from a small community to bigger community. I live in a eco village here in northern Scotland. We are about a few hundred people. But we can do it. We have it in our historical mind, and it's very possible that we self-regenerate with communities. I'm gonna skip. There is a beautiful song from Iran, is about a minute, that I've recorded this in Fars as when I arrived, and it's very, very beautiful. And maybe I share it, maybe not, I don't know. Okay, so I want to just turn our attention to what Trees for Hope is doing. We have hives, we have a process, I call it soul social alchemy. We're creating small communities of 5 and 6, a hive, 6 people, like a beehive. And we have a process of regenerating, and that's one ways that we are contributing to healing the self and land. So more on that later. And this is a poster. I have 2 more slides, so yeah, I just like to share that. So this is a poster for an event that Trees for Hope is organizing, 21st of November. Is a storytelling and dance and presentation and fundraising. So I'd like to invite you to pay attention, and I will write our website on the chat. So please join us and you will learn more about Trees for Hope. And lastly, this is my very last slide. I just received this song today from friends in Iran, and I translated it. So, oops. Sorry. So I translated and just uploaded it before. So it's 2 minutes, and let me see if I can share screen like that. And I like to end my presentation with the song of hope, with the song from the people, from our hearts, that the dawn is near, we are breaking through, there's a beautiful future waiting for us. And yeah, personally, I can't wait to go back and renew our country together. So this is the song for you.
Kupakjan, we don't have sound. Can you turn on the sound? Can you share sound on your computer screen?
Oh, how do I share sound? You are sharing screens. How do I share sound? I don't know.
You're going to have to reshare. Stop sharing.
Share, okay.
And then share, and make sure to click computer sound.
Okay, so maybe I will do this. Computer sound. Let me see if this will work this time.
We're not seeing your screen.
Share screen. Here, let's see. Are you seeing? There, and here we go.
No sound.
No sound. Oh. Let's see again. No sound?
No.
I'm going to stop share. It's a shame. Okay, well, technical problem. That's my presentation.
Thank you so much, Pupak. John, maybe you can put the link in the chat for this video and people can watch it later. But thank you so much for your presentation. Very illuminating and very sad what is happening. But the solutions are within our reach.
Yeah, I mean, there's one key thing I need to link these, because the pain and the oppression of the land is connected to, of course, what we're experiencing as women. And I feel the our liberation and is connected, the regeneration is connected. And I just, I pointed out to the spirit of Persia, and I really feel what's happened is a hostile takeover, and it is an uprising, and we are facing a brutal fascist force, and we need to be fierce, we need to be fierce, but we need to also know why, and the roots and our spirits are strong.
Yes, truly, truly. Outer regeneration goes hand in hand with inner regeneration. One cannot go, you can't have one without the other. So now we turn to Kambiz Nafisi, our next speaker, an Iranian spiritual leader and founder of the Joy of Life organization, Nishat Zindagi. Kambiz is an international Kriya Yoga meditation master and spiritual guide. Can I ask everyone to mute themselves, please? Thank you. Kambiz founded the Joy of Life organization in 2001, and during his 16 years of spiritual work in Iran, he trained some 6,000 Iranians in meditation and personal transformation. In 2017, Kambiz was arrested and exiled from Iran for his spiritual work by the Islamic Republic. He now regularly conducts meditation and self-development courses in Sri Lanka, India, France, Sweden, Canada, and the US. Kambiz will speak to us about inner regeneration. Welcome, Kambiz. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Whenever we think about shifts in politics, shifts in social movements, I always see it as a shift in consciousness. So when perspective shifts, that causes social shifts and political shifts. There was a time when people were not allowed to look into the eyes of the Russian Tsar because he was the son of God. And then several months later, the Bolsheviks assassinated the entire family. That's a shift in consciousness. My own life kind of began with a shift in consciousness. I was born in a very old Persian family. And because of the sub-society around me, I wound up doing a Harvard MBA at an international satellite of the Harvard Business School. I did the Columbia University School of International Affairs, somehow wound up in Wall Street as an international banker. And one day I realized that I'm dealing with very, very powerful business leaders who don't have the management of the inner life. So I realized as a 26-year-old that management of the outer life without management of the inner life is kind of upside down, because I was witnessing a lot of strange things going on in Wall Street. So one day I divorced my life in Wall Street. I went to a meditation center in Iowa, stayed in meditation for 7 hours a day for 2 years, and then started my journeys to India for 15 years, meeting with the Grand Masters. I learned how to awaken a God-given inner energy in the body. People give it different names, chi, ki, kundalini, jhana, alam. What I realized is with simple breathing and surrendering this ego portion with the first name and last name, that the body started experiencing massive bliss, massive energy. And then as I was doing the spiritual studies with the masters of meditation yoga, I also started doing deep research into the psychological component and realized that there's a part of us, part of our mind called the subconscious mind, which is the reservoir of all of our beliefs, our values, our life story, and some hurts that we keep from the past. And this hurt becomes like a thorn in our flesh. And if anything gets close to it, we become very defensive. And so we limit ourselves because we're protecting some beliefs and values that we've inherited from the past. So in any case, after that 15-year journey of divorcing Wall Street, going through India, Sri Lanka, Europe, the US, and teaching meditation, after I've had learned how to enliven this energy in the body, and also how to reprogram the subconscious mind of some beliefs that may be hurting you, that you had inherited from the previous generation. After a 26-year absence from Iran, I went there for a New Year holiday, and some old friends said, listen, there's nobody in Iran doing quite what you're doing. Why don't you give up the idea of the New York Times bestseller and come and help us, because we're having a lot of anxiety, fear, and inner conflicts. So I packed up a suitcase, went to Iran, and created an organization called Nishat Zindagi, which means the joy of life, and kind of began with the first 3 students. And for me, it was a closure, coming back to a land that I had suddenly left in the winter of the revolution as a 26-year-old. I returned as a 49-year-old. And as I started to teach reprogramming of negativity in the subconscious mind, and as I started to teach breathing meditation, I immediately encountered 3 challenges, which were 3 generations of Iranians that I was meeting as I went back there. This was 2001. The first generation I met had inherited a very old Islamic belief system going back to more than 400 years prior, that believed in a vanished saint who's a 7-year-old boy living at the bottom of a water well. And when things get off balance politically, this vanished saint will reappear and put things in order. And as I started riding taxi cabs in Tehran, when I first landed in 2001, I met with a lot of taxi drivers who said that the day that Ayatollah Khomeini landed with Air France, many of us driving our cabs as young men believed that the vanished Saint Mehdi had arrived to save us. So generation 1 that I met had inherited at least 400 years of deep, deep Islamic training. So this talk is not against any religion. I'm talking about subconscious mind, mental training. So the first generation I met had this 400 years plus training in the vanished saint, in the fact that sensuality and beauty in women was deeply shamed. You have to realize one thing. When I was in Iran, attending an international school in the 60s and 70s, we had the ultra mini skirt and the hot pants mixed in with the conditioning of what a nice Persian Islamic girl is supposed to do in order not to go to hell. Because the vision being presented was that there's a very, very angry God and there is a hell. And that whole doctrine shamed women's beauty and sensuality very deeply in the subconscious mind. And so that's the first generation I met in my classes had inherited, several hundred years of hell, purgatory, the fact that these people with the turbans on their head were very, very holy men. And everybody's supposed to rise on their feet and basically kill off sheep for particular holidays in order to honor God and so forth. And then the second generation that I met were people who were growing up from 1979, let's say through the early to mid 90s. And these people were traumatized by Saddam Hussein's rockets flying into Tehran, flying into southern Iran, and the beginning of massive punishment for not veiling themselves, not hiding the face, the skirt being way too short, the pant hems being measured in kindergarten, junior high, and so forth. So that was the second generation trying to somehow digest this idea of are these divine religious men and women? How come we're being scared to death starting from kindergarten with this idea of a very angry God that shames women's beauty, hair, any sense of beauty, sensuality, art, even skiing on slopes, dance, and so forth. So that second generation had a lot of trauma when I was working with them during meditation. Lots of tears, lots of terror coming up during deep relaxation exercises. And then I met Generation Z in my children's classes because I was imprisoned in March of 2017. So Generation Z was just beginning to come out of childhood. I met them in my children's classes, and they had seen California blondes surfing through the internet. They had watched Swedish girls skiing, and they had watched New York rappers rapping. And this generation had just completely thought it ridiculous to try and live with 1,300-year-old principles of reality. I mean, this is the generation that's just very much attuned to what's happening in the world. And what I taught primarily, and this was just not in Tehran, I took it to very remote villages in the Persian Gulf around Shiraz. And, through cousins and cousins, suddenly I realized that there are members of the Revolutionary Guard out of uniform coming to some of these breathing meditation classes and suddenly feeling unexpected bliss and movements of energy in the body. And some of them had never had a quiet mind before, and suddenly the mind became empty. And in the emptiness of the mind, tears started coming down the cheeks. And so they didn't quite know what this was. And they were trying to reconcile the idea of, well, where does the prayer stand? And where does my breath stand? And what is this electricity and energy going through my own body? And why am I feeling bliss? It wasn't because of me. I don't have a copyright on this. It was because of them, something inside them. And then we started kind of detoxing ideas in the subconscious mind, because the subconscious mind controls all of your values, all of your beliefs, all of your culture and heritage. So presenting them with some techniques to quiet the mind, penetrate the subconscious, identify which beliefs and values are not serving you, and then replacing them with beliefs, perspectives, and values that are serving you specifically in the way that you want to live. And so this combination of people in a remote village feeling this tremendous energy in their own body and bliss bubbling up. Secondly, having some understanding of what this subconscious computer is and how we can inherit some beliefs from the past that don't serve Generation Z, who are right now very active in the country, how to cleanse. This combination of, it's a highway with two lanes. One is your soul, your spirit, Kundalini, Chi, life force, starting to turn in the body through simple breathing. The other is the technology of cleansing ideas, perspectives, values, and beliefs about what it means to be a woman. Why am I ashamed of my beauty? I will tell you one thing. When I was doing counseling in Tehran, Shiraz, Persian Gulf, many of the women that would come to my sessions had a lot of problems with their reproductive systems. And a lot of them were massively, massively shamed for being a woman. So there were a lot of feminine problems with that whole reproductive area of the body because of the shaming, because of the mixed messages. And all of that had to be cleansed. In any case, if you're becoming curious about some of this, then I'm just going to spell my name with a .com at the end. And this is the website, and the technology for the meditation is called Kriya Yoga. And the technology for cleansing the subconscious mind, all of which exists in Farsi and English, is called Coming Full Circle. So my intention is not to advertise. I just want you to see where I'm coming from. In any case, I would say the 16 years in Iran after a 26-year absence was really a chance to meet people from all walks of life that I had never had an occasion to meet as a younger man prior to the revolution. And one thing that I'll tell you that really, really moved me, when I teach in the West, there's often this question of, okay, sir, what are your credentials? Do you have a PhD in psychology? Why do you call yourself such and such? And when I went to Iran, what I found very interesting was that everybody immediately had this natural belief that there is some sort of an invisible life force that it is a force of nature, that I have a right to invoke that force in my body. And I just found it really interesting, teaching both East and West, that in Iran, despite all the suffering around this word God, that people were just extremely, and still are, extremely open to an idea that because I'm created from that force, I have that force within me, and that simple breathing and the cleansing of some nonsense from my subconscious mind, it just opens my channel immediately, and I just become a daughter of the God force. They were extremely open to that, which I found was wonderful. In any case, that was my talk. I mean, if I were to get into multiple workshops that I had in these small villages and Tehran, that's a book upon itself. But so I'll stop talking now and get back to Banafsheh, and we're all open to questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kambiz. Thank you for sharing with us your experience. Thank you for the work that you do. You are truly, truly helping the different generations that you spoke about. So I want to express my thanks to you and for, gratitude from everyone who has experienced your work and who will experience your work. You know, everyone, when I was asking with some friends of mine here, asking some of the women we're in touch with in Iran who are involved in the protests, involved in the uprising, what we can do in the West for them, they said, organize mass meditations and get the energetic support of the people of the world for what we're doing, and help everyone see how what is happening in Iran is connected to the rest of the world. So I want to say that the people of Iran, especially the younger generation, are so aware that what we see in the physical world, in the visible world, has its source in the invisible. And it is with our mind and with our heart that we need to first organize ourselves and design what we want to see in the world, that we are truly creators, that we are truly extensions of the divine force of love in the world. So, Kambiz, I feel like you confirmed that. And I want to also ask you how you see inner regeneration, how you see this kind of healing that needs to happen for almost all the generations of Iranians, not almost all generations of Iranians, the healing of the trauma that we have experienced. How do you see us going about doing that? I know this is a big question. This is an enormous question. Both the Iranians in Iran and those of us who were forced into exile and have been living outside of Iran for countless years are in need of healing this trauma. So what would you say?
It's a big question, Banafsheh, and I kind of dive into it because it's my passion. I really believe that healing at the deepest level must happen at two levels. Number one, I'm being used by a particular force because of 30 years of training. I'm being used to guide people to use their simple breathing and the energy behind the breath to invoke a humongous, blissful, peaceful, God-given energy that already exists in your cells and molecules. When a couple of members of Revolutionary Guard started to spiral as a result of this energy being woken. One of them whispered in my ear, he said, "Oh, now I know what God is." He didn't mean me. Didn't mean me. He meant the force. So one way for the healing is just to feel this energy that is always in there. That's one way. Number two, we have at least 3 generations that need different types of healing. The people my age were suddenly ousted out of our home country, and we became second class citizen immediately, because there were PhDs from Stanford sitting next to me when I was a 26-year-old. And they were telling me, we are seeing Khomeini's picture in the moon. So my generation has to do a lot of healing in terms of realizing who the true holy people of society are. It spells L-O-V-E. It's very simple. Whoever exercises love is a divine living creature. My book, it could be a cheetah, it could be a tree, it could be a person. So in my generation, because we were suddenly outnumbered by this vanished saint that landed with an Air France airplane, that generation needs to be healed in rediscovering their own values about what divinity, what their own values are, what femininity means. Okay. And then we have the second generation who's traumatized. Part of them are just exiled and they lost contact with their own country. They need healing in coming back together with the people of Iran. You know, I had a chance to do that for 16 years, so that was very healing. So there are millions of Iranians living outside who were torn away suddenly in the late 70s, and they haven't come full circle. So, you know, one of the things I do is I do online sessions, and people from Shiraz, Bushehr, and Southern California join each other in the same class. And they're right there. And there's some healing to be done there. It's like, let me hear their story. Let me share my story, because they're very curious about you. And so this is happening live, should be happening live. And then there's Generation Z that's healing all of us. They're saying, nonsense. This is the world of the internet. I can see the Swedes skiing. I can see the Californians surfing. And I can see us waging this battle in Tehran and Iran. And one thing that really impresses me about the way they're healing us, I was first expecting that we're going to go from the veil to the hot pants and mini skirts immediately, even now in the battle. What I'm seeing is a lot of nobility. I'm seeing the Tao, the way of the center. I'm seeing these 16, 14, 20-year-olds with so much spiritual maturity that they are keeping the middle way. Despite this 43 years of don't wear this, don't do that, I'm seeing them keep the middle way, because nature always comes back to the middle. After, a tornado, nature comes back to the middle. And I'm so moved by the maturity of this Generation Z that is healing the previous 2 generations by saying, nonsense, open up your own mind, join our hands, we'll give you love. Why don't you cleanse your mind of ideas you don't expect? And then also keep the Tao, keep the central path. You know, we don't go from 70 years of communism to Gianni Versace suddenly opening a boutique in Kremlin Square, whatever. So because usually the pendulum swings from miniskirt to veil to wild parties again. And this Generation Z, from what I'm seeing so far, you know, I place Farsi messages on Instagram, and these people are responding, and they're very centered. This is not about miniskirt or the veil. This is about liberating the land and giving people freedom to celebrate femininity and masculinity coming from the depths of your heart. You see?
Yeah.
So I'm sorry for the long-winded answer.
No, it's the resurrection of the, you know, the teachings of Rumi and Hafez and Ferdowsi. That's what's emerging. So truly, it is centered, it is heart-based, and it's inviting everyone to wake up to their divine selves. Pupak John, I would also like you to come back. We're almost at the end of time. I'm going to ask Jim also to join us. And Pupak John, would you like to make any comment, any remark? Do you have any remarks after?
Yeah, I'd love to join, but I cannot start the video. You need to enable the video sharing somehow, the host. But I can speak. I'm happy to speak. Well, no, I'm very touched by the teachings of Kambis, and I'm learning here from Kambis, so glad to be here. Do you have a question for me?
Let's see if the people, participants, have any questions for Pupak.
I have a question for you, Pupak. And first, I want to say I was profoundly moved by your presentation. I found myself getting quite emotional. I hadn't taken in how devastating the regime has been on nature, and your point that they've treated nature like they've treated women. That's a very profound point, and the images of that lake that used to be so full and beautiful, now just a fraction of its former glory, was very poignant. So I just want to thank you for your presentation. It was really marvelous. And I'm wondering whether within the context of the current regime, does an environmental movement as we would know it even exist, or do they consider environmental activism like taking off your hijab, for example? I mean, what's the relationship of environmental activism now and the current regime?
So there's been a turnaround that you know. So I shared a slide there of 7 environmentalists. There were 7, now there's 6. 1 is free, 6 are in prison, and you know, a prominent environmentalist friend, Dr. Emami, was murdered. Since that incident, so that's 4 years ago. Since that incident, it's become. It really closed down, you know, like even I was in Iran the same year and was trying to, you know, bring teaching and, you know, do something for the environment. But since that crackdown, it's become impossible. It's really become impossible. So it's really like suffocated, you know. People, of course, are keen and do their things. People, you know, care for the environment, ordinary people, everyone. But it's difficult to get organized around it, you know, to have an organized activity, an official, like, you know, an official tree planting, or it's very difficult to do that openly.
That is so sad, given the rapaciousness of the regime. So very sorry to hear that. And doubly thank you for everything that you're doing, even external to Iran, to bring this issue to our collective attention. All strength to you.
Absolutely, absolutely, Pupak. Thank you so much.
And then Kambiz, I would love to have you back. I think the last point you made was really seminal. And I would like to just underscore it and explore it more deeply, because one of the points that Stephen Zunis made several days ago about what worked for the Sudanese revolution, which overthrew a regime, Islamic fundamentalist, militarist, highly coercive, and no one thought that they could ever be challenged. And the protests were so extensive that the leader who had held power for, I think, 30 years was forced to flee. And one of the points that Stephen made was that what worked was that the protesters, like you're describing the Gen Zs, were extraordinarily mature and refrained from acts of extremism and enabled more and more people to take small little acts that were possible for them without endangering themselves. And that is what created the crescendo that finally brought the regime down. So it's interesting that it's been Gen Zs that have been igniting the revolution in Iran. And your observation from your own experience that they seem to be extraordinarily morally and emotionally mature and centered in the way that they're comporting themselves. I think that's a very important acknowledgement and insight.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, I'm just going to take it back. You know, when we talk about these three generations, if we just keep the power of subconscious and belief systems in view, you know, the Islamic influence in Iran goes back several centuries. So the first generation that got impacted in 1979 had to deal with a lot of old forces in here regarding what is holy, what is not. Do you get up when an Ayatollah enters the room? What does femininity mean? I mean, Persian women were known and are known as being an extremely beautiful race of women throughout the world. And then when I was going to high school, there was this very strange thing about, you know, their beauty. And then there was the Western fashion. And then there was some liberation society. And then, of course, there was years and years of programming about what a nice Persian girl should be like. And to witness the mixture of that. And then after that generation, you had the people growing up under Saddam Hussein's bombardment and all of the punishment being given by the holy men. And then Generation Z, who just kind of laughs at a 1,300-year-old doctrine. They're just, I mean, they have a humor about it almost in terms of inner belief. So just to see these three and how the previous two are actually being healed by somebody who is just completely wired differently. And I'm impressed because, you know, this pendulum between Gianni Versace in the Kremlin and 70 years of communism, you see that between Republican Party, Democratic Party, the pendulum keeps swinging. And how many people can keep the way of the Taoists? Like, hold it, let's just stay focused on the main thing here, you know? I have an inner life force. I have a value system that needs to be cleansed. I need to hold your hands. We need unity. Just keeping the priorities straight. I'm keeping my eyes on that right now as it's happening, to keep the priorities straight. And one other thing I'll mention is, you know, when I'm just helping as a friend for people to cleanse things that don't serve them, after some cleansing is done, the next thing is to have a direct experience beyond your zone of comfort having a direct experience that opens you to a new part of life that you've never experienced. So if we think about fear, fear is this invisible thief, and it says, if you dare cross me, something awful is going to happen to you. And then suddenly you have Generation Z doing this without a veil, standing on top of a car, and they're going beyond fear. And they're not exploding, they're not vanishing. So that's a direct experience. Whenever you're working on human development, if you can get somebody to cross an unknown line,
yes, of course, yeah,
that's very magical, and that's happening right now in Europe.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you both so much. Pupak, thank you. Kambis, thank you. This has been a marvelous closing presentation to our program. And so, Banafsheh, I'm going to turn it over to you for whatever closing comments or videos or anything you want to do just to close us out. And I want to really thank you for a marvelous, marvelous program. Beautiful.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jim, for allowing this program on Humanity Rising. Thank you for everyone who's joined. And I invite you to hold the intention every time you hear, anytime you hear news from Iran, to hold the intention that the light of certainty that the people will triumph, that the people will free themselves, that they will triumph over this government and overthrow this government that does not serve its people, and to do so as peacefully as possible, sourcing themselves from the invisible, from the source of life itself, and drawing strength and power from there. So I invite you to hold this intention with us. And in closing, I say to all who have joined us in this summit, and to the people of Iran, to the people of the world, these words of Rumi, of our beloved Jalaluddin Rumi, who says, Bejushid, Bejushid, ke ma ahl shu'arim, bejuz ishq, degar kar nadarim. در این خاک، در این خاک، در این مزرعه پاک، به جز مهر، به جز عشق، دگر تخم نکاریم. Rise up, my fellow warriors. Besides love, we have no other task, no other purpose. In this land, in this immaculate field of the body, let's not plant any seed but kindness. Let's not plant any seed but love. Blessings to you. So much love to you.
Thank you, Banafsheh. Thank you, Kambis. Thank you, Pupak. Beautiful words of Rumi with which to close that will bring us to our final moments here. You're all welcome to join the after session chat group. Next week, we will begin a 2-week program tracking the Conference of Parties in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. So we'll be turning our attention to climate change. But what we have experienced over the 5 days of this week, I believe, has been profound. Because what the young women and the young people, the Gen Zs, are doing in Iran is really both unprecedented and pointing the way to a new humanity and the kind of revolutionary movement that I think empowers all of us everywhere who are participating, and ultimately will cleanse Iran of the tyranny which is now besetting it, and open up the pathway to a return to the elegance of Persia, who so powerfully embody the prospects and vision of a new humanity. So thank you, everyone. Bye for now.